Hello, and welcome to Monumental, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, and big thinkers making monumental change. Here's your host, Evan Holiday.
Welcome to Monumental. I am your host, Evan Holiday, and today we have on the show with us Trevor Mauch. Trevor, how you doing, man?
Evan, what's up, dude? I'm pumped to be on here and great to finally meet you in person or in person digitally.
Yeah, I love it. Yes. Trevor is crushing it. I'm really excited to get into today's episode. Before we get into today's episode, I do want to quickly touch on everybody listening right now. You are part of our monumental community, our monumental listeners, and you yourself are making monumental change in the world. And so we want to thank you first off for listening. And then secondly, if you could either share this episode or leave us a review, let us know you're listening and let us know you're enjoying today's episode so we can share that and share Trevor's story with others who will get massive value from this. So with that, let's dive into a little bit of Trevor's background, and then we'll dive in. So Trevor is the CEO of Carrot, one of the nation's fastest growing companies, according to Inc. magazine. They've helped the nation's top real estate investors and agents pull in over 3 million online leads in just 5 years, closing thousands of deals. I'm excited to hear how Trevor and his team have grown so quickly and have also been able to create a software as a tool, in the tool belt of all of us real estate investors, and really building that around the passion for the impact of helping entrepreneurial dream of all these real estate investors and unlocking that freedom and flexibility and finances and impact. I love that, that's so important to their mission. And I love that, it's right there in their bio of Trevor and of the company. So I'm excited to dive into that because everybody listening here is always thinking about that monumental impact. So actually, why don't we just start with that, Trevor? Why don't we start what for you, why is the impact piece of this so important for you?
Dude, it's such a good question. So I think this is something that every entrepreneur either has dealt with or will deal with is as soon as you start let me go back. So most of the time when we start a business, we're like running away from something, right? You're running away from a job you don't like or an income ceiling that you hit that you're like, man, I need to get away from that. Or, doubters in your life where you're going to prove them wrong. But then eventually we end up hitting a spot where we hit that income goal or we got away from what we were getting away from. And we have to make a transition at that point to run towards something. And, I definitely in my own story hit that around 2011, 2012, where I had the income that I was hoping to get, so I wouldn't have to go get a job. Like I was running away from the traditional world of going and getting a job. And I said, if I can just finally make $4,000 a month doing this entrepreneur stuff, then I can kind of have freedom, right? I can go do what I want to do. And what ended up happening for me, Evan, was I created the business. My income got to the spot that I hoped that I could someday get to and a little bit beyond. And the business ended up trapping me. It's like a business that I had created myself, where if I was to look back at myself 3-4 years before that, I was exactly where I thought that I wanted to be. But the problem was the work that I had created for myself, man, drained my energy. The work that I had created for myself made it to where I was supporting the business rather than the business supporting me.
Yeah.
And I think it was through that. And that's where a lot of purpose comes from, right? Is like we oftentimes reach back in our history and we say, this thing happened to me, or I had this experience, and I want to now help other people avoid that thing that I went through, or I want to help other people avoid the thing that I experienced or I saw. It's that for me was it, man. Cause I felt empty in that time period, that 2011, 2012. I'm like, I thought that it was supposed to feel amazing when you got to this point, that the clouds were going to part and the angels were going to sing and everything about it. And it didn't. It just made me sit back some days and just go like, I don't want to go to work to do the job that I had created for myself. Why? Why? And it's because I didn't feel like I was making the impact that was going to light me up and hit me in my gut. And so when we started Carrot, that was one of the core foundational things, dude. It was like, wrote down my 5 non-negotiables in that transition from my previous career, my other businesses where I was trying to figure out how to be a business person. And then I wrote my 5 non-negotiables in 2012. I'm like, I don't want to go to work to do the job that I had created for myself. Why? Why? And it's because I didn't feel like I was making the impact that was going to light me up and hit me in my gut. And so when we started Carrot, that was one of the core foundational things, dude. It was like, wrote down my 5 non-negotiables in 2012. I'm like, one of the big parts about it is, I want to have this business make a massive impact, like hit me at my core, purpose wise. And so we built that into Carrot too, helping people do
That's
the same thing.
That's amazing. I love that. And that's exactly, we talk about a lot on Monumental of how to like you plan and be intentional about your success and the roadmap for where you're going. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did when you started Carrot is you put forward the game plan of saying, hey, this is a non-negotiable. This is part of my business.
Yeah.
We did the same thing with Holiday Ventures. When I started that, I said, all right, let's take, we basically took traction and said, let's implement traction, the mindset of the EOS operating system for Holiday Ventures, and let's make the business around impact, what we really care about, and what we ultimately want to do with the business. We were intentional about saying impact is number one, empowerment is number one. And I think if you start with that mindset first, then your cup will be filled up every day you go to work, and it won't be work. It'll be a lot of fun.
Dude, that's the thing, right? And I think you'll talk to a real estate investor or an agent or entrepreneur doing whatever, and there's so many people, man, that I know, and you probably know them too. And I've been in this spot before too. But there's so many people where they're doing really well financially. You show up at that mastermind, and they've got the numbers to prove it, and they're like hitting all this stuff, and everyone's looking at their numbers, going, "Man, I want to be like that guy or gal." And then you actually go talk to the person in private, and they're like, "I'm miserable. I'm just not happy doing what I'm doing." And it's not because they're not good at their craft. It's not because they don't even like real estate or their business. It's because the thing that they're chasing is a dollar sign. And it's not saying that that's a bad thing. I think money is an amazing thing. The reason I say it's a bad thing for purpose is because there's always a bigger number. And so as soon as you hit this number, you're going to go, cool, like short dopamine hit for half a second. Then you're going to like, what's next? Well, if I don't have a guiding light, that's a purpose that drives me forward, that's evergreen, that's going to last forever, that you can never hit, right? But you can always strive for improving it. If you don't have that, another higher dollar sign is going to be your next driver. And it's just this continual letdown. So it's so important, y'all, to make sure you believe at your core that your business is here for a purpose, not just for profit.
How did you decide, I guess, the impact piece, like drilling that down even further, just because I love talking about this. As far as having that impact, what does that look like to you, and how do you see Carrot having that impact?
Dude, it's such a hard question, right? Because first of all, I think we all want to have the perfect purpose, the perfect thing that we're impacting. We want to have our Tom shoes moment, right? Where it's like, I can clearly see that when someone buys a shoe, I'm going to give a shoe to somebody else. And like, I can see them wearing it. And it's this very, very clear thing. And I think I was pressuring myself for years mentally, going like, what's my Tom shoes? And we just couldn't come up with it. Like we knew that we wanted to make an impact, but I wanted it to be defined. I wanted it to be specific so I could see it and other people could see it and you could measure it, right? Like hey, 40,000 people got this thing and we impacted them. And we weren't hitting it, Evan. So what we started to do was we said, well, and this happens in like life outside of business too. With giving your time or donating money, is you start to look at it and go, well, if I hadn't found the perfect thing, I didn't have that light bulb moment like Tom Shoes did or whatever. What if we just start doing anything? Like, let's just start giving. Let's start making an impact. Let's dabble. Let's do a bunch of things. And then I think pretty quick we'll find where we're drawn and where we're not. And so we did. This was probably 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago into Carrot. This was 5 years ago, actually. Dude, the very first thing that we did before we had defined what impact meant for us, other than helping our clients succeed, right? Locally here for us, is I said, well, I need to work on my giving muscle better, like physically giving dollars and time. And I said, it's not about a dollar amount. It's not about having a bunch of money. It's about giving what I've got. Everybody at their own level has what they can give in money and time. And I said, well, around Christmas time, what if I gave every employee $100 bill, including myself? And I just said, your only requirement is, like, in addition to bonuses and stuff, the only requirement is you have to spend this on somebody that you do not know. You can't know them at all. And I don't care what you do it for. It just has to spread joy. Like, that's it. I just want you like stepping outside of your bounds to use this money to go spread joy with no strings attached. And it can't be anybody that you know. And then post about it to our team on how you did that and tell the story about it. And so that's how our official giving program, like direct impact outside of our customer base, started to happen was that. And we've carried that tradition forward every year, the $100 giving challenge. Now we've got 40 employees and 40 employees are going out there doing it, and 42 employees now. And now and they take their own money oftentimes and pile it on top of it. And we get customers doing the same thing. And I'll finally finish your question here. This is where we really discovered, Evan, the impact that I think we can make the most. It's, yes, there's the obvious impact that we can help our clients, real estate investors, wholesalers, flippers, agents, get more leads, close more deals, the whole thing, right? But we said, what is it about their businesses that we can inspire them to do through the operation of our business that we think we can really help them impact their communities even more? Because their communities need them. Like, they need entrepreneurs to go make a difference. And we said, what if we just start telling people what we're doing internally, where we're winning, where we're losing, how we're making an impact? And 2 years ago, we officially created our Carrot Impact Fund. We seeded it with $500,000, and we give 1% of our gross revenue every single year to causes that amplify our values. So it's an organic process, man. It took years, but in summation, I think people just have to start with something. You have to throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks and see what doesn't, and just keep on honing into the thing that resonates with you.
That's awesome. I'm really, really glad I asked that question, because I was taking notes the entire time you were talking, because I love every single one of those. The $100 giving challenge. I mean, what better way to open up your team members' eyes to a whole new possibility of giving and giving with expecting nothing in return, and how powerful that is for not only the giver, but also the receiver. And how that's just, I love that. That is really cool.
You're good. I was going to say, and that's like the direct impact, right? That's direct. I'm taking time or money to impact people I don't know, but there's the indirect impact that I think a lot of us forget about. And this is what we really honed in a few years ago after trial and error, right? Is, man, how can we make this business sustainable? So it's not all about hitting the next number or dollar. Yeah, we've got to grow to create more opportunity for team members, and so we can impact more people. Like, growth is a part of that. And it's fun to grow. It's not fun to go backwards. But the indirect impact we were looking at too, and this is something I want to challenge every listener too, is what are we doing and how are we operating as a business that we can inspire others to operate at business at a better level, where they can add more humanity to business in their business, where they can actually show up with more morals, more values, more ethics, actually with a core value set on their wall that they follow business by. That when someone reaches out to Carrot, we hear all the time, man, it's the best support I've ever experienced anywhere in my 30 years in business. Like, that's the indirect impact that the rest of our team is pumped about. It's like, how can we show up and just be a better example that creates this kind of butterfly effect to the 8,000 customers that we're working with?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is so true. It goes back to like being intentional about your business and the ethos that your business puts out into the world, and that culture you create of impact and actually providing positive impact. I love that. And going back to the Carrot Impact Fund, I think we're also going to probably steal something like that as well. There's another guest we had on Monumental, Mark Deutschman, and he started a real estate brokerage company. It's been very successful, and also a development company. And he did a similar thing where he set up, like, as soon as he started the company, he actually set up 5% ownership, went to a nonprofit that he created, which I thought was a really cool model. That way, cool. Even if he sells it or it moves on, it's still that 5% stays with the nonprofit.
That is cool.
Yeah. So I love that you brought that up. I do want to back up just a little bit. I realize, for those of our listeners that may not know what Carrot is, we should probably give them a little background into what Carrot is and how it helps real estate investors and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, dude. So we're a small company based out of Roseburg, Oregon, a little town, but we're a remote team of several dozen full-time people now. And Dude, what we do is we help real estate investors and now real estate agents essentially attract more of the highest quality motivated seller leads, cash buyers, tenants, like things like that to you online. So for you to go to Google and type up "sell my house fast," insert any city in the country, you're probably going to find somewhere between 3 and 8 carrot sites controlling page 1 in Google in every city. If you're working with some of the biggest wholesalers or flippers in the market, the odds are they likely are using carrot, or what they're using is heavily inspired by the work that we've done. So we help you guys get more of the highest quality leads, gain consistency and predictability with it, and close more deals.
I love it. And that goes back to the impact piece. You're helping so many people by creating a tool like that. And where did the idea come from to create Carrot?
Dude, the idea that this was right in that time period where I was kind of going through that transition, from the 2011 to 2012. And before we hit record, we were talking about this mastermind that I've been running forever with my former business partner. It was at that time when we had parted ways in that business, when I was trying to figure out what to do. I'm like, I know that what I was doing had some really cool merits to it, and I learned a lot. But I also wrote down the list of the things I didn't like about any of the businesses that I had ran before. And I wrote that list. I'm like, I didn't like that I was executing things all the time. I love strategy. I just don't want to how do I just do stuff and not have to execute stuff, which is impossible when you're starting a company, but you can eventually get there. But, and then there's a whole list of things on there. And that list of things I did not like about my previous companies, what you end up doing to find your non-negotiables, the things you do like, is you just do the opposite of that. It's like, well, I don't like the inconsistency in my income. Well, I'm going to just do the opposite of that. Well, my non-negotiable is consistent, predictable income, right? And so it came up with 5. At that time, I had the 5 non-negotiables, but I didn't have a business idea. And I'm sitting there going, well, let me go down these non-negotiables and let me look at those and start to think about what type of a business idea might be the best business idea to be able to get that. And then I looked at my background and what I had been doing and some good things that could be high leverage. And in that previous business, it was in the real estate space. I worked with tons of real estate investors. Before that business, and even still today, I have an agency where I would do online marketing type work for bigger companies and then a bunch of real estate investors too. And Evan, it's one of those things, man, where I was going through, I read the book, The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz. And I was going through it and I'm like, I've got way too many pumpkins on my line. And one of those pumpkins was a software company that I'd invested in that was near going out of business, but I learned about software in that one. That one failed. Another software company I invested in around the same time, it almost failed, but now it's bigger than ever. We're actually selling it. It should be sold in April, which is really, really cool.
Wow.
That's where I learned about software. I'm like, this is interesting, because you can take and make a system out of something that is really manual for someone to do, and you can automate it, and it's really high value, and people will pay you every single month for this thing. And you just keep on proving that one product. You don't have to like market a new product all the time. It's the same product. You just market and improve the same product forever. Instead of information publishing, I love that too, but you have to, oftentimes you're relaunching a new course every year, every 2 years. I'm like, what if we never had to do that? We'd just make the same product better and sell it better. And so I had the software experience, I had the real estate experience, I had this list of non-negotiables. I'm sitting there and Mike Michalowicz's Pumpkin Plan. And I said, what needs to trim? I trimmed my time with all the software companies, because at that time one had failed and the other one I thought was going to. And we ended up getting that on track years later. Trimmed everything else. And I said, the only thing not trimmed yet is these 100 people that from my previous publishing company, we had set up little mini WordPress websites on a HostGator reseller account. And people would come to me saying, hey, I need a website. Do you have a good one? I'm like, none of them are good in the market. They're all bad. They're not going to rank well in Google. They're not going to convert. They might kind of look pretty, but they're not going to perform. And so we set up WordPress websites. We literally did it manually, charge them $10 a month for it. Like, just have it, just hosting and just charge it. It's like worst business model in the world, because they all want support, right? They want support, and you can't sustain that at $10 a month. So I'm sitting there looking at these 100 people. Most of them probably weren't even paying the $10 a month anymore. So only half of them were actually paying it. And I was getting ready to push the button, like to literally send the email to all those people saying, love you guys, but here's all of your code, your files. You have a couple months to move it to a different server, then I'm just going to shut it off. It's not something we're going to continue. And I thought about this opportunity that popped up, that a friend of mine walked into my office that week before, who's a contractor. And he said, I've got a website, but it's just not ranking. It's not getting leads. You know what to do? I'm like, yeah, if you just switch these two things and change these, and it'll get ranked higher in Google, and you do this tweak, it'll convert better. And he's like, do you have anyone who can do that? I go, man, no, because none of the local web developers are going to do something that performs. They'll make stuff look pretty, but it's not going to convert or perform.
Yeah.
So I was in a predicament, and he was too. And then I was getting ready to push the button on the send. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the same problem. It's like all of these entrepreneurs, these small businesses with service businesses, they have websites that don't perform and don't convert. I know how to solve that. What if I just took these 100 people and actually made that into a software company, and let's test it? And that's what we did, dude. So Carrot started in that was 2012, early 2013, when I was getting ready to hit that. I did a test in 2013, officially launched Carrot in 2014. The first 100 websites other than those ones, we manually built. Like someone would literally go through and submit on our thing, and it would say, we'll have your website built for you in 48 hours. And we would just like crank through this process. So
That's quick.
yeah, 8,000 active clients later, man, here we are.
Wow. I love that you started with, the first thing you said was, these are my non-negotiables. I think you're probably the first person I've ever heard that said that's how you started with picking your next business. I think that's really cool, because you're basically saying, hey, this is what we're not going to do. This is not the territory we're going to go in. You know, even if something slightly interests me, if it doesn't hit these 5, then we're not going there. And I think that takes some introspection too. Like, you can't just, go after shiny object syndrome and go after whatever business you see. It's taking some time to sit there and write out, say, what do I absolutely detest about what I'm doing now, or what I do in business in general, and how can I do things differently so that those things never come up again.
And that's the key, man. Like I'm bringing up my non-negotiables again here, because people might be asking, like, well, what are your non-negotiables? This slide here, I mean, from memory, I've got them, but I want to see the exact words of them, because it's always fun to read back through them. But anyway,
do you have them readily available? Like, do you check in on them recently?
Yeah, I mean, they're locked to memory, but I want to find like the exact wording of them as I wrote them in 2012. So I've got them right here. They're up on my desktop on my computer too. And so the first non-negotiable, Evan, was a singular focus on the big thing. And this is something that a lot of entrepreneurs were very guilty of, and it's not a bad thing, right? We start off trying to figure out what's going to work. And if it's real estate, you're going to like try wholesaling, and I'm going to do subject to, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do Evan's development thing too. And I'm going to do this. And or let's say you decide you're going to do wholesaling, and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to do Carrot, and I'm going to do direct mail, and I'm going to do cold calling, and I'm going to do, like, you end up doing a million different things. And what happens when we do a million different things is we get spread thin. We end up having mediocre results. We say it doesn't work. We get worn out, and then we lose our fire for the business. And that's what I had done before. I had seen some success. I got bored because I didn't find purpose to move towards. So I said, well, maybe my purpose is just like, maybe it's a different business that I need to get distracted by, right? And then I said, no, I'm just going to focus on one thing. Like, what if I just focus on one business? And that was it. Like, how amazing can I make that business? And so that's negotiable, non-negotiable. Number one. Number two was have fun and have a big mission I believe in at my core. I'm not saying I wasn't having fun in my previous business, but it wasn't intentional fun baked in. Have a big mission I believe in at my core. I had a big mission, but I didn't believe in it at my core. Like, I wasn't finding myself drawn to using, every day and every project and all that to always say, how does this help us towards the mission? It was cool up on writing. Like, I wrote it and I'm like, oh, that's big and it sounds awesome. People will think I'm cool when they read it, but it doesn't hit me in my gut. Number three was consistent and predictable. Dude, it's like my previous business was, we'd do 140 grand one month and then 7 the next month, split between 2 business partners. It's stressful, Number 4 was build a long-term valuable asset. Same thing with my previous business. We made a good income, not complaining about that at all, but we've never really built an asset. So, what if something were to happen to me? Or I started to look back, and I had friends who had been building these info businesses, online businesses for 10 years. And I'm like, dude, you don't have anything to show for it. You have 15 information courses and all this kind of stuff stocked up on the shelves. You're not even selling anymore. It's like, that's not an asset you can sell if you wanted to sell it. And then number 5 was I wanted to live on purpose and work within my unique abilities, because I just felt like life was kind of taking me and I was working on stuff that drained my energy. So those were the 5, man. And so when I sat down and looked at those, I literally took that, and a software company fit into these, right? It's like, one thing, I'll focus on growing a software company because I had experience in that. Number 2, or number 3, consistent, predictable. Almost nothing more consistent, predictable than that, other than rental real estate.
Service. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. A long-term valuable asset. And then the other ones, live on purpose, unique abilities, and have fun, a big mission. Those were like, well, how do I just build that into the software company now?
That's awesome. I think a lot of what you said in your non-negotiables, I think, are very similar to mine. I don't have them written out. But I think, for me, it comes down to exactly what you're saying. It's like, how can I stay in my lane, be the best, be the absolute best? And I think I fell victim to this at some point in my past, where I was like, I see everybody doing this successful thing over here, buying existing multifamily and fixing it up and raising the rents. And, but that's a whole nother type of multifamily investing. Even within multifamily investing, there's so many niches. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was like, well, let's double down on what we're really good at. Let's stay in our lane of affordable housing and development specifically, and be the absolute best at that, and be the name, the thought leader, the go-to guy in that space. So that way we can really own it and be in our zone of genius. Like you said,
people are afraid to niche down. I was as well when we started Carrot. I mean, the reason it's called Carrot and not like Real Estate Carrot or realestatewebsites.com or something like that is because we wanted it to be able to have the ability to go broad if we wanted. So we didn't want to like limit our abilities to go broad. So if you're a real estate investor, same thing. Think about your long-term ambitions. And if you're thinking about your company name or your website domain, if you think at all that you're going to grow outside of your city or outside of your region, think about that. Like, make sure that the box you're putting your business in is big enough for your ambitions. Yeah. And then number 2, once you do that, then go, cool, my box is big enough that I'm not going to have to like get out of this box in 3 or 5 years. But now I'm going to hyper focus in on one niche, and I'm going to see if I can create a flywheel in that one niche. We happened to go deeper in the real estate investor space, and I thought that we could. And then once we got to a spot where we've done really well there, and we've had some processes that worked well, we said, cool, agents and investors, a lot of them are the same. Now let's kind of add that part to the mix. But dude, we went 6.5 years before taking focus off of one very, very small niche and built, 8-figure business off of that. So guys, don't get distracted. Go deep.
Yeah. Go very deep. So with Carrot, what do you think has led to your success? What have been 1, 2, or 3 different things that have led to Carrot's success over the years, as being this go-to product that real estate investors need?
Dude, yeah, I'll give you 2 for sure, and there might be a third that's going to come up. So the first one is positioning, and it's so funny because timing wise of positioning, like we literally wrapped up our 3rd session of a 3-session workshop with this gal named April Dunford. She's like the leader in B2B tech positioning in the world. She's literally written the book on it, and she's awesome. And so we're 7 years in, and when you're about that amount of time in a market that moves quickly, you have to reposition some stuff. And so we're repositioning. But early on, Evan, that was the biggie. We had to look at it and go, how do we position ourselves so we're far different than the competition? So we're not really the same category per se. How do we make it to where we kind of make our own category a little bit? Yeah. And in the website space, there's a million places to go get websites: Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, GoDaddy. There's other companies in the real estate niche specifically who you can get a website from. But we were positioned far different. We were positioned as, if you want to actually get results and stop losing leads and deals that are costing you tens, if not hundreds of thousands a year in lost deals, then you come to Carrot. If you want to set up something free, easy, simple, cheap, and have this amazing drag and drop experience, but have really low conversions and lose tens of thousands a year in lost deals, go with Wix. Go with one of our competitors. And so that's the high level way of describing it. But positioning was number 1, dude. how do we stand out to where someone can clearly, first of all, recognize immediately the bucket to put us in. Okay, you're in the website bucket. Immediately they could say lead gen website bucket, but then it was like, now how do we position far different from them and kind of create our own bucket over here? And and then we're like, we're going to own this bucket. We're not just going to be in it. We're going to own it. Like, how do we pick up the bucket and carry it around with all of our competitors inside of it? And so that was the first thing. We use data for that. We use proof for that. We just use like old fashioned rolling up our sleeves and getting results for our customers and telling people how we did it. Like, that was it. And doing it over and over and over again for years. So number two, dude, as far as growing care, so that got us our initial jump. That got us into the spot where we could actually start growing. And we worked a good spot in the market. We had tons of evangelists, and our customers started to sell for us. Adrian was one of our first 100 customers, and now he's a team member of ours, and he still does deals every single month with Carrot, right? So there's that flywheel. But then there's a spot, Evan, right when we were probably around 1 to 2 million a year. And I can't remember exactly how many people, maybe 15 people on the team, 10 people on the team. This was the second biggest pivot. Is I had to make the decision myself. Am I going to hold this business back? Or am I going to learn how to grow and actually build a real team? And it was when we were 8 people, actually, is when it was. And here's exactly why. Is I didn't know it at the time, but in hindsight, I know now, is you can really only manage like 6 to 8 people effectively and still be able to do your job. I don't care if that's outsourcers or employees or whatever. And so we're sitting here at 8 employees. I'm just going, I have no time to do my work. Like, no time. It feels like I'm putting in 60 hours a week and I'm still not getting my stuff done. And I don't feel like I'm serving my team members well either. And so in that moment, I said, I'm either going to dial this business back and make it a lifestyle business, or I'm going to learn how to be a leader and grow a team. And so that's a whole nother call. I mean, we could dive into as much of that as you want, but that moment there in 2016 is when I made that choice. I'm like, I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to stop being scared of employees and growing a team. And I'm just going to see where we can take this company. So that mindset shift was big.
Yeah. I love both of those. I love that you brought up, like, the first one, to get the momentum, to get the business rolling, was just being maniacally focused on first your position and then building proof for that position, and building, like you said, evangelist customers, and putting in the work day in, day out, like you just said, for years and years and years. Like, it didn't happen in a day. That, Carrot was built over many years and many trial and error and learning and improving. And then the second thing, allowing your team to help you, and building a team that is a resource, and rather you not being the bottleneck. It's funny you bring this up, because we literally had this talk as a team this week, and we're Holiday Ventures team of 5, and we're very much on a hockey stick growth curve right now. And it's fun and exciting. But I said, guys, what I see as our big issue right now is I'm a bottleneck, and I don't want to be a bottleneck. And I want to figure out how I can get out of your all's way, and you guys don't have to depend on me, and you guys can take more ownership. So I don't slow you down. Cause I know, we hire rock stars, and just like you do at Carrot, you look for the best, and there's a reason for that, because you can empower them to make their own decisions, and they're capable of that. And having that faith in your team is going to infinitely unlock way more productivity and success for yourself, your company, your mindset, your mental health, so many other things. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And that's where, around that same time, is where that mission and purpose started to bake in, right? Because I had to make that decision. Am I going to dial us back to be a lifestyle business? Which, that's a whole nother, I've done podcasts on that, man. Like, there is not, I don't want to build lifestyle businesses. You don't get freedom from those. You get freedom from those for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, maybe 18 or 24 months. But eventually you're going to have to go back in and rebuild the system that broke down, and rebuild the thing. And it's stressful. But with this, man, around that time, that's when I said, oh shoot, this is where I get to actually learn how to build a business that gives freedom. And like, let me figure it out, and let me then teach as many people as I can in our customer community how to do the same thing.
So for you to make that switch, what did that look like? Was that like a team-wide discussion? And then also, was it certain hires that you made that helped you kind of unlock, more of your time and also allow other people to take on more ownership?
Yeah, so there's a couple things, man. I've got a friend, his name is Alex. Oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking out. Alex Sharfin. And he created something called the Billionaire Code. And you guys should go look it up. It's Alex Sharfin, CHARFEN, Billionaire Code. It's this really cool graphic that kind of shows at every level of business, and it goes by revenue, what the entrepreneur, the founder is going through, what questions he or she needs to ask, and how they need to answer it. I didn't learn this until like 2 years ago. I wish I would have seen it earlier. But essentially, at that 8-person mark, what it was for me, Evan, was people were coming to me for so many decisions, like tons and tons of decisions. And I could immediately make them because I knew where the company was going, but they couldn't make the decision because they really weren't clear where the heck we were going with this thing. Like I would talk about it, but like they couldn't go back and say, oh, this is where we're going over the next 3 years. And here's our goals. And so I hired a coach. That was the first time I'd ever hired a coach in my life, in 2016. And he was a leadership coach. He came in every single Tuesday for 90 minutes. It was like entrepreneurial therapy. And he would come in here with no agenda. We would just talk, and he would start asking questions. And then he would always give me a prescription based on what I'm going through in that moment.
Yeah.
And he's like, sounds like your people don't really know where you're going. So like you really can't get freedom unless they kind of know what's in your head and where you're going. So do you have a written vision? I'm like, well, I'd say it all the time. Like I say where we're going. He's like, well, like, do you, can you tell me right now, where are you going? Of course I couldn't. It's just a random smattering of stuff. And he said, that's the first thing you need to do. And so I labored over that for probably 3 months. And we wrote our very first ever, I called it a vision story, in 2016. And that ended, we did it 5 years at that point. We'll do it 3 years out now, but that ended at the end of 2020. So we rewrote the 2023 vision story a few months back. That was the first thing, dude. As soon as you get that vision on paper, then you're talking to your team and say, hey guys and gals, this right here, like this is where we're going. This is why. And this is like how, these are the core strategies that are going to get us there, and get the buy-in from it. Then they get excited about it. And then you can keep on coaching back to vision. Hey, awesome. Great question. How does that help us get closer to vision?
Yeah.
That was the biggest unlock for me, for sure. And then there's a whole series of other things, delegation and communication cadence, stuff you learn in EOS, right? Those types of kind of things and how to run the business. But the vision and the vision story and communicating that well was the key.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up coaching. That was a game changer for me as well. And then Vivid Vision, Brandon Turner recommended that to me when he was on Monumental, and I read that and I was like, whoa, yeah, I need, and immediately just, it's a quick read, but it's basically what you're saying is, how can you actually take your vision, which you as the entrepreneur, the CEO, you have that clearly in your mind.
Yep.
But nobody else knows, nobody else is a mind reader. And so putting that actually down on paper, and being able to like communicate that through writing and through sharing that with your team, I think is how you get everybody on the same page in the same direction. Like they talk about it in 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. They talk about how, the having teams that work together really, really, really well is what separates the great companies from the good companies.
Yep.
And that's exactly it, is having that vision laid out and clearly communicated to your team.
Dude, and I've got, I don't know if this would be helpful for people, but because we literally just wrapped up our 3-year vision, several months ago, and we rolled it out to our team, and we had our company retreat a couple weeks ago. And so we have our public facing version, which doesn't have like the numbers and all the specific product strategy that we're going after. But internally, company wise, we have the big long thing, which is all the details and everything. And then we break it down to a 1-pager. And we even did that when I was 8 people, right? It was like, here's the big long 16-page vision story broken down with everything, but no one's going to read that every day. So then you distill it down to a 1-pager they can put on their desk, they can put on their wall. But if you're game for it, man, I've got our public facing version of it. I could either share it here on the screen, or I could give people a link and they can literally go through and flip through it to see what a good vision story could look like, that they can emulate moving forward.
Yeah, most definitely. Let's share the link with that. We'll put that in the show notes
Cool.
on YouTube and on all the podcasts.
Cool. Yeah, you guys can just go to carrot.com/Trevor. That's kind of my catch-all for the resources for things like this. I'll put it over there. Carrot.com/Trevor. I'll put our vivid vision on there. I was chatting with Cameron Harold a few weeks ago
Oh,
and
awesome.
showed him to this. I'm like, dude, what do you think about it? He goes, this is one of the best examples I've seen in a long time. So we're proud of it, and hopefully people will get some good inspiration from it.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Small world, man. So one of the last questions I wanted to dive into with you before we dive into monumental questions, where do you see the future? Like, we're talking about your vision. Where do you can you give us a high level overview of where you see your company going, and then also maybe broadly real estate investing?
Yeah, dude. So, this is something we started to see probably 3-4 years ago, heavily, and we're really adjusting pretty big for it right now. Is there's the retail side of real estate and there's a wholesale side, and it's always existed, always will. iBuyers, open door offer pad, Zillow, they're trying to come like right in the middle and trying to take some from both investors and agents. But what we're seeing is the two industries, the two sides of the industry squeezed together, where I feel sellers are going to demand more options. When they're working with an agent, they're going to start to ask for an offer, because that's becoming more and more mainstream, because the big dollars that are going in from the iBuyers to educate people that that's an option. And also with the real estate investors, because it's really competitive and cluttered and the market's hot now, but they need to be offering that option of here's what it looked like to get full retail on the market. And so we're really catering our solution moving forward and we already have some solutions for what we call hybrid internally with Carrot, to be able to present multiple offers. So if you're an agent and an investor, how does your website help you to attract the right sellers and buyers to help you do the hybrid model better? So I think hybrid is going to be huge, where every agent should be an investor, I feel, if they have that risk tolerance, or they should at least collaborate with investors. And every investor, I feel, should have their license or at least collaborate heavily with agents. The next thing, man, is as far as like online leads go, websites, of course, will change. I mean, some people say, well, shoot, our website's going to be the same. Like, what will happen with Google? Well, guys, websites are still pretty much the same today as they were 20 years ago. I mean, essentially, right? There's things that have happened. Technology is better. It's easier to use. But you go to a URL, it pulls up a page with content information on it. Now they're a lot more geared towards mobile. Over 60% of the leads, the hundreds of thousands of leads that come in, each month from Carrot are on cell phone. So if you guys are looking at your websites, they need to be mobile first. Like, don't look at it on the desktop and go, oh, this looks so pretty.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to 40 to 60% of your leads. Like, pull up your cell phone and roll through it and ask yourself, is this easy to use? Is the form field big enough for a thumb to fit in, even if it's especially for an older person? So mobile is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Dude, the last thing that I'll call out, and this is kind of market stuff and Carrot stuff, is more and more, like, I'll talk to investors and agents, and we get into the business because we want that freedom. You'll talk to agents or investors like, man, I wanted flexibility. I want to grow that money. But then they end up doing marketing that traps them. Like, they do what I call hamster wheel marketing. And pretty much all outbound marketing, it works. All of it works, right? But it also is hamster wheel for the most part. So cold calling is only going to work while you're cold calling. And then after the calls are done, then you got to get back on the hamster wheel and cold call more, or hire people to do it. Direct mail works great, but it only works while you're sending out pieces. RVMs, text, they only work while you're doing them, which is great, but it keeps you on this hamster wheel forever, where you look at it and go, if I ever want to get off of that and get freedom, I've either got to build a team and learn how to do that, which is awesome, or I've got to switch to marketing that brings evergreen leads to me that I can stack and really put work in up front and have them coming to me over the long term. That's what Adrian does, right? And so that's what we're going all in on, man, is evergreen marketing. We literally bought the domain on it, evergreenmarketing.com. There's nothing up there yet, but there's gonna be some cool stuff coming out, man. We're gonna pioneer evergreen marketing in all of real estate and make it easier for people to attract the highest quality prospects to them consistently and get off that marketing hamster wheel. As far as actual like real estate stats, you probably know some of the stuff better than I, but diving into foreclosure numbers, it's gonna be really interesting going into 2022 after the moratoriums are supposed to end in September, but they'll probably extend them again. And the inventory should rise because inventory shortages are what's really propping up that inventory shortage, and low interest rates are propping up prices right now. So I think for 2021, it's still going to be a really strong market as far as prices goes. We're still going to see inventories low. COVID restrictions are going to help with that. Interest rates are going to help with it. But then something's got to adjust, man.
Yeah.
And so I think 2022 is when foreclosures will start to hit the market in tranches. Interest rates will probably start to tick up a little bit. There's no way we're not going to have some sort of inflation a little bit.
Yeah.
And there will be opportunity for investors, and especially for people doing what you teach, to build affordable housing. It's going to be a huge opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Is, the at some point, I mean, I think we all know, globally, single family market and multifamily commercial market, there's just an imbalance. It's not an equilibrium, right? You have this, we have for many years, it just seems like it's continually a seller's market. And that's driving up prices. Like you said, low interest rates are also driving all this up. Limited supply is also driving this up. But I think there are, I mean, even you look at the unemployment, like it continually 800,000 people every month are new people are joining unemployment. That's going to eventually catch up to us. We can pump in trillions of dollars into the economy, but it's only going to last so long.
Yep.
So I think at some point this party's going to slow down. It may not stop, but it's at least going to slow down. And I think you're right.
Dude, it kind of feels like the time that we're recording this right now is when all this GameStop craziness is going on in the stock market. I'm like, the GameStop thing kind of feels like a microcosm of what's going on in like the financial world in general right now. All this money is getting shoved in and things are looking great. And everyone's like, but then someone over here sitting back knows that eventually it's going to, like, that can't go on forever.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be some very smart people on the other side of it that are gonna be able to optimize that investment to do that. But yeah, there's just craziness going on right now, man.
It's quick side note going a little further onto that. So it's so funny you say that, because I've thought about like the GameStop thing. I'm like, I like, in one way, I think that's really cool that, some guys on Reddit, showed it to the man and beat them at their own game in a way. But then at the same time, I'm like, that's really scary that they can have that much volume of trading on such what should be almost an obsolete company.
Yep.
And it's mind blowing. Like, and that's the thing that worries me about stocks. And that's why, everybody listening, I highly implore you to be investing in real estate, not in stocks, because I mean, I even looked at like Boeing and all the airline companies, because I was like, oh, maybe those are good investment options right now. It's like, no, they're at almost 52-week highs right now.
Yeah.
And you're like, they are literally going to be hurting for the next 2 years. Why are they at 52-week highs?
It's frothy, man. Like it's wild, dude. Get into real estate, but do it smartly, y'all. Because you can overpay for stuff right now, big time.
Yeah.
But as long as it cash flows, like don't buy it for the equity now. As long as it cash flows well, it's in a strong market. If you're renting, that rents are going to continue to go up. Here in Oregon, there's kind of like rent caps now, but still it's decent. You can raise rents. I think it's either 6 or 8% a year max. And so if you look at that versus a stock, I mean, pretty much if you buy it right and it's in a good spot where people are going to continue to rent it, at very least, rents will go up 6 to 8% every single year. You know? And that's a pretty good thing if it's a good piece of property.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's dive into our monumental questions.
Cool.
What does success mean to you?
Man, there's this quote that I saw. I don't know who came up with it, but the quote essentially is, my definition of hell is when you reach the last day of, you reach the last day of your life and you meet the person that you could have become. And it wasn't the same person. Like, I butchered it, but essentially like that. So my definition of success is that I feel like I am the person that I or close to the person that I want to become. That I'm not this massively different person at the end of my life or in 5 years or whatever than my vision was. And that's all that I care about, man. It's like making progress on that vision and become the best person I can be.
Yeah, I love that. Daily habits or morning rituals that you have?
Well, right now, dude, I'm doing 75 hard. So my
Nice.
daily habits right now are a little bit different than normal, but I'm going to continue doing most of them. So what I love right now is, and I'm going to keep doing this, working out every day. Just the energy level, dude, is just,
Yeah.
I used to think if I worked out 3 days a week, like, man, I'm doing awesome. And maybe that was a good start, right? But every day is just completely different. I drink a gallon of water every day. I did that before 75 hard. Energy wise, amazing. And I read every day, read 10 pages in a book every day. And I wasn't every day before 75 hard, but now I'm going to keep that with it. So those are kind of the core ones, man. Just eat good foods, drink a lot of water, work out and move every day, and read. And that's going to be a good little cadence for you, I think.
Yeah, I love it. Last question, favorite book or book you are currently reading?
Dude, I'm rereading this book right now from Jason Fried and David Hanmer Hansen from Basecamp. And it's a book called It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work. And, we're 40 plus employees, and that's something we're always looking at going, well, shoot, we're not looking at selling the company. So how do we make this an even greater spot to work? And especially for me as the founder, it's like, I want to be never motivated to want to sell this company. Like, I want to make it to where I'm pumped every day to show up.
Yeah.
And so he's got so much good stuff in there, dude, on how to rework your company and the expectations, the way you communicate to make it more calm. So it doesn't have to be crazy at work. Second time reading it right now.
That's awesome. I'll have to check that one out. Well, Trevor, phenomenal episode today. I loved it. I know our monumental listeners are going to love this episode. Just diving into your story, your mindset, your absolute must not list, and diving into how you have set up your company for massive success that you've already achieved and what you're going to achieve over the next 3 years. That's really exciting to hear that. Where can our monumental listeners follow you or reach out to you or see what you're doing?
Dude, Evan, man, I appreciate the invite on here. You have amazing guests. I'm just grateful to be a part of that group. And 2 spots, Instagram, that's where I'm the most active. Just find me Trevor.Mauch, Mauch over there, or to go to carrot.com/Trevor, where I put like any resources I personally use over there, my daily habit tracker that I use for my daily, weekly, monthly goals. I'll put the vivid vision over there for Carrot so you guys can see an example. A link to my podcast is over there. So carrot.com/Trevor.
I love it. One last question I have. I just thought of this. Why carrot?
Because this right here. So in those non-negotiables, part of it was I wanted to have fun, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to make the brand something we can brand and have fun. I want it to be something that stands out. No one was using orange in the real estate space at that time. So orange stands out. Everyone was using like blue or green. And then I thought of like, what should a website be versus what it is for most people? Most people, it's a business card. I'm like, a website should be like a carrot. It's you're dangling this thing in front of them. You want to get them to bite. And we can have some fun with that. So it became Carrot. And 4 years after we started the company, finally bought carrot.com.
That's awesome. The old carrot and the stick.
That's right.
That's really cool. Well, Trevor, thank you again. And monumental listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure to go share it on social media, tag Trevor, Trevor.Mauch on Instagram, and tag myself, Evan Holiday. Let us know you're listening, share it with your friends. And guys, with that, have a monumental day.